Hello and welcome to another episode of The Coder Career with me, Cameron Blackwood, and my co-founder, Colin Riddell. Today's guest is Ewa Grabowiecka. Ewa is a former microbiologist turned software engineer. She joins us today to discuss her journey from working in laboratories to working in the FinTech industry here in Scotland. And speaking of Scotland, we have a really exciting announcement. The first in-person Coder Career event will be happening in central Edinburgh and we'll be partnering with X Design. It will be on the 14th of July starting at 6 p.m. and will be free to attend. Tickets are limited though, so please do register via the link in the description. Don't worry if you can't make it in person because we'll be live streaming it. You can also register for the live stream for free in the description. Obviously, that's unlimited because it's being live streamed. Once again, massive thank you to X Design, and if you want to chat with us in the lead up to the event, you can join our Discord community for free via thecodercareer.com. You just need to fill out your details and just provide us with your email. But with that housekeeping out the way, it's time to grab a coffee, push those commits, and enjoy the show. Hey, thanks so much for joining us, everyone. How are we all doing?
Excellent. Great to be here. Who do we have today, Cameron?
We have Ewa. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. That was a very enthusiastic entry for a Monday afternoon.
Well, you know, the weather is just so nice. I'm feeling really enthusiastic. Like, I actually think I got a bit sunburnt today, so you don't
What?
get that much in Edinburgh. What a day. Like, I'm ready for an exciting chat about tech. So for people that haven't come across you before, do you want to say a little bit about yourself, like a little bit about your story so far?
Yeah, so my name is Ewa, like whatever. I am based in Glasgow. I work at a little startup called Nude. Not so little now. We have grown quite a lot over the past year. So yeah, Nude. Careful what you type into your browser.
I was going to say,
I know. Do you know? You're like the amount of times you get blocked in other people's mailboxes, flagged up. But yeah, so it's getnude.com. For those who want to be a little bit safer. And we are a startup and we help people save up for their first home. So we are very targeting first time buyers. And we do like goal setting and money saving and all cool stuff. So that's what I do for work. And for fun, because that's not nerdy enough, I run a meetup called Codecraft. We've been running for the whole meetup's been running about for 8 years. I've been running it for about 4. And we run on third Thursday of every month. We love alliteration. So third Thursday of every month,
cool.
either online or in person.
Very nice.
Codecraft's one of like the big ones, isn't it? It's one of the like kind of long running Glasgow-based tech meetups that, I mean,
Yeah.
I went to Codecraft for the first time in 2016.
Yeah,
I think so. And I think it predates that even as well. That's just when I heard about it. So yeah,
yeah,
nice
I think
one.
it's
That's awesome.
2015 that we started. So I didn't start in 2015. I only got into tech in 2016. So went to uni in 2016. 17 graduated and joined Codecraft 2018. But yeah, it is one of the OGs of the tech meetup scenes. Yeah.
What do you do at Nude? Are you a software engineer?
Yes, so I'm a full stack software engineer, as it is in most startups. It's like, what can you do? Everything good. We want it tomorrow. No, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. But yeah, so I do mainly at the moment. I do the app. So we are a React Native based application. We're only available on iOS at the moment. It's crazy to think about. We only have 4 developers, and this is the things we do. We have like internal tooling. We have the app on iOS. We have our backend. We also have Azure functions that we run our stuff on. And that's for people, you know.
That's
And then we've
scary
got the
stuff.
website. Yeah, we've got our own website as well that we also run. So yeah, it's a lot.
A lot of learning opportunities there, though, I bet.
Yes, oh yes, every day. No day is a no learning day. Every day is something new. So it's really good. It's really good. I really
That
enjoy
does
it.
sound really good. Like, I think there's a lot to be said for engineering teams that can deliver products and maintain themselves as being a small scaled engineering team at the same time. Like, I've got a lot of respect for that. Like, you hear quite a lot of teams that have like 50 people in them, and then you look at their product and the product's like, what the hell are you doing with 50 people?
Yeah. I
So
think
that's
I
really
think
cool.
yeah, no, it is cool. I think at the start you definitely have that luxury that things go fast, because you don't have that much. Even communicating things is very very quick because there's only 4 people that you need to communicate things to, and we did it really well. That, you know, our tech lead Keith, he used to run Codecraft, so he's totally sold on good coding practices and implementing systems early on in order to then be able to scale efficiently. And I think that really helped us. Like, we have a really good code coverage, like unit test coverage, which means that we can rapidly, if there's issues in live, we can really easily replicate them in our test environments. And if we've not accounted for a scenario, just bang it as a unit test, done. Something's wrong, write a test for it. Usually we can do things that way. We have like design systems, which means that we've got like a component library, which we didn't have at the start. We only kind of implemented it January last year, and that lets us like implement pages in the app really quickly. And I think we're very good at that we put the time to maintain the code base, which means that we can go quicker. But I'm very aware that as we grow and as more people come in, it will get slower, just as the nature of it. But yeah, it's very cool. I've never been in a place where there's only 4 people and it's like a whole product.
I mean, for some perspective, I mean, the current place I work at, we have 700 people in our tech department, so very different kind of setup. Which is, it's always interesting to hear about how it is on the other side. And something we do on the Coder Career to get to know our guests a little bit better is we run some quick fire questions. So this will be an interesting one with us all being across the M8, which is something I realised in the intro. I was like, we are all from, you're from the far west of the M8, Colin's from the middle of the M8, and I'm from the far right of the M8, which is not interesting to anyone outside of Scotland, I've just realised. But it's a cool fact nonetheless.
But
anyway,
if we had a party bus, you know the route.
Do you know what? That's given me an idea. Coder Career Party Bus. We're all having a little hackathon along the M8. That sounds like a weird day, but I think it'd be quite fun.
I think it'd be quite fun.
Right, we'll get on it. What do you reckon, Colin? Let's get organised.
Yeah, I'm up for it. I'll drive.
Love that.
Can you drive a bus? Are you allowed to
No,
drive a bus?
Definitely not. Who cares? Try something different. Try everything once, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. You never know till you try.
Go fast, break things, right?
Exactly. Lean agile. Let's do it.
Absolutely. And so on to the quick fire questions now. What was your first ever computer?
My first ever computer. Oh, well, this is quite interesting because I come from Poland. And when you speak to people here, they're like, oh, we had the Nintendo, we had this. And I was like, we had fakes of everything available and imaginable. So I had a computer that someone put together for me. There was not branded, but basically you went to a computer shop and they put it together for you. And that's what I had. I don't know what the make is. I don't know what the model is. I don't know what the spec is. But I heard on your other episode that someone mentioned Lemmings. I absolutely played Lemmings when I was younger. This is also why I went to Dundee Uni, because Lemmings were amazing. I also played a lot of Aladdin, Prince of Persia, and Lion King, which was also great fun. So that was my first computer. It was just a put together computer that sat, I think it was in my brother's room. And it was just a put together thing with no brand on it.
That's the best kind of computer. Yeah. That's the best one.
Another Coder Career question that's not an official question that we never usually ask, but it's sort of a theme that we end up getting about. This first computer of yours, was it driven via floppy disk?
Yes. Oh my God, absolutely. Yes. And you know what? If for anybody that remembers floppy disk, and if you don't, go and look them up. There is I was obsessed with it because I loved the Batman the Animated Series. And when you look at the floppy disk, it looks like a little Batman on it. And I thought it was so cool. And also Sailor Moon could destroy the world with a floppy disk because they were like, aha! And they held the little floppy disk. And yeah,
I don't remember the Batman thing.
You don't? Look it up.
No. Batman. Okay.
Look. What, the thing on the floppy disk or the animated series?
The thing on the floppy disk.
Oh, you should.
I'll look it up. I'll remind myself what floppy disk looks like.
Okay.
Yeah, it's sort of a thing now in the show, isn't it?
It's a running joke because I admitted when Colin first came on the pod, first as a guest before he became a host, I admitted that I'd never use a floppy disk and I wouldn't know how to use one, and I don't really remember and because it always transpires that I actually look about 10 years old and I actually am. So it's now become a running joke for everyone to basically laugh at the fact I don't know really how to use a floppy disk on
How
Coder
old
Career.
are you?
I'm 26, but I am 27 in 2 weeks' time. But yeah, I never. I think I just missed floppy disks really by a couple of years.
Yeah, sounds like you did. I'm 10 years older than you. I just realised. All right, Eva, I'm going to ask you your next quickfire question. What is your favourite tech city?
Glasgow, of course. Like, what
Oh,
else? Like,
that's a great answer.
That was
what would I
quick.
say? I don't even need to think about it. Berlin is also very cool, but I would say Glasgow is the best. So
Tell us more about why you think that, if that's okay.
because people make Glasgow,
Oh, I like it.
people are just so nice. Like, it's literally the slogan of the city that people make Glasgow. Yeah, I think before COVID, we had a really strong tech community. I think in the town, there was a meetup every day with like a good turnout of people. And if you think about it, like the tech industry isn't huge in Scotland. Um, but there was meetups nearly every day. There was something happening. There was a lot of interesting things. We had speakers from like all over the world, which is really random. I think it's just because people knew each other. So if someone was here on holiday from like America or something, they would be quite happy to come in and do a talk at a tech meetup, and that like it's amazing. And we had people coming back sometimes when we went online from America, like kind of tuning in or zooming in. I don't know what the word is. Um, from all over because it was accessible and they've been once or they've heard and that kind of stuff. So yeah, absolutely. I think we are so good at community and helping each other and kind of sharing ideas. So I would definitely say Glasgow.
I like that people make Glasgow is a really good saying and motto. I like to think Edinburgh's one is "We will never fix our potholes." That's probably our city slogan. We will never empty the bins. We will never fix our potholes. But the parks are nice, which is good.
Yes.
Anyway, enough of me complaining about local authorities. Hey there, Cam here. Hope you're enjoying this week's episode of The Coder Career. This is just a quick shout out to the rest of our careers network. Did you know you can also find us on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and many more? Most importantly, we have a Discord server. You can access that by going to thecodercareer.com and filling out your email where you'll be sent an invite link. Now back to the show. Cool. So obviously you're a coder like us now, but back in the days of playing the games via floppy disk when you were a kid, what job did you want? Was it code then or something else?
No, so I'm trying to really hard remember what I wanted, but I think I'm one of those people that just like switches areas of interest every couple of days. Um, but I remember quite distinctly listening to like audiobooks on my cassettes, because we had cassettes back then, and doing like a lot of like I had my little teddy bears and I was acting out the scenes that was happening in the audiobook. So I think probably something theater, something quite creative. I got really into art when I was like in high school, and then I just thought microbes are really cool, and I ended up doing microbiology first. I was like, this
Cool.
little thing can kill you. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that's cool.
What was the point where you were like microbes are like what exposure did you have to them where you're like they're really cool? Was it just like a biology class thing or
So my brother did a PhD at the same time that I was in high school, and he did microbiology, but he did the boring microbiology, right? So he was looking at like effects. So basically, his PhD was like figuring out if we could filtrate water through a pavement and then generate electricity while we do it, which is, I mean, very cool. And part of this work was understanding like what happens on a standard street in Glasgow or Edinburgh. It was actually Edinburgh at the time. I lived in Edinburgh. I puke and poop and all the normal things that happen, and then I think he showed me like mold once under the microscope, and that was me. I was hooked. I was like, this is so cool. You could like it, for me it was just this like a whole new world, that you could see under the microscope that you just had no idea existed, and I was just in it. I was like, this is so bloody cool. I want to do this. I want to see more of it. But equally, I wasn't that interested. Like I wasn't like, yeah, this is so cool. I want to do it at uni. I was just kind of like, oh, I have good grades from my biology, so I'll go to uni, do biology. But I did microbiology because I thought microscopes were really cool. What's under the microscopes was really cool. And that's kind of how I picked it.
very nice. And I mean, kind of related to that and exiting the quick fire questions. Your journey into tech, how did you go from scientist slash academic biologist over to the world of being a software engineer? How did that process happen? And do you think you've learned a lot from that original STEM background you have?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So first, so how I got here. So I went to do microbiology, and I did this thing called iGEM, and iGEM is a worldwide competition where scientists create microbes to do something new. So for us, I was in Dundee at the time, and we were really interested in um, what's the name for it? This is really bad. I can't remember what I
Science.
Science, yeah. Algal blooms. So we were really interested in algal blooms and how, if you've got an algal bloom on the lake, that totally cuts off the community from the use of that lake, because then they create toxins and you shut down the lake. And that was the case what happened to one of the lakes in Dundee. So we were kind of interested in that. And it was this guy called Kyle, and he built out of a Raspberry Pi and an Arduino a little robot that would sit in a lake. We put it in a lunchbox, and like it was like a Tesco lunchbox that we had to make holes in, and we put sensors in it and a little camera, and you could monitor the algal blooms and the temperature of the water. And I just thought it was the coolest thing on the planet that you could send it. I don't think like it was that advanced back then, but the fact that I could get data from that little robot onto my phone, it was just mind blowing to me. And then he
Nice.
did, yeah, and it was cute, right? We called it a moptopus because it was like an octopus that
Cute
would
name.
mop things, yeah. Um, and then he did our website, and I just got really interested in that. I thought this is really cool that you could be really creative with it, but also you could build stuff with it, but also you can do data with it. Like I was like, you can do everything in code. So I knew about coding before. Like I did higher computing, and then I was the first girl to do advanced higher computing in my school. I think, as far as I remember, it was a long time ago. There's only 2 of us in the class anyway. And so I knew like you could do things. I just didn't quite grasp like what you could do and how much could you do. And I probably guess that in that 4 or 5 years between uni and high school, quite a lot of change and tooling probably developed on a quite a scale. So when we did iGEM, we did really well. So we won the European stage. That was really exciting. And then we went to MIT, and then that's where I saw more people doing stuff with code, and it was just really cool. I thought it was a really cool thing to do. So I decided to do something called bioinformatics, which is like DNA stuff, basically, if when you analyze DNA and all that kind of stuff. So I did a little bit of that in my 4th year, and I really liked it, but I didn't really know what I could do with it. I knew I didn't want to do a PhD, because the way PhDs are set up is not the vibe. Let's just call it that. So I knew I didn't want to do a PhD. So I went to industry for a little bit, and then I saw part of the project was automating some of like older machinery, and there was a person that was kind of automating analog machines to have digital switches in them, and I thought that's really cool. And some of the problems that person was having, I thought I could do this. I was like, there's no chance this thing that they are trying to do is that complicated. So I kind of sat on it for a little bit, and then I used to live with someone who was a recruiter for tech, um, and he was like, there is a job for £50,000, which was nowhere nowhere what I was earning. Just for the record, I was earning under 20 at the time, and I was like, and he was like, oh, nobody wants it, and I was just like, how can you not want a job for 50 grand? Like, what is this? Um, and now I know it's because it was a SQL job. So I know nobody wanted it, but I just thought I'm like, what do you have to do to earn that much money? I was like this, I don't know, I was like 23, 24. And that amount of money was just like, I didn't even think I would ever make that money in my life. It was inconceivable for me that someone could reject, like there could be a job for 50 grand that nobody wants to do, which is an office job.
Yeah.
Right. And I just thought, F this, I'm going to university. So every savings that I have, every penny I pumped into paying for my master's, and kind of took it from there. And it was the best decision I've ever made. I'm so happy I did it. It was horrible at the time. It was really stressful, really hard because I had to have a part-time job, and it taught me a lot about myself as well. But equally, it was hard, like it wasn't easy, but it was so worth it. Very, very happy I did it. And I'm quite happy that I also didn't go to university straight away, because coming back to your earlier question about like, does it help you being a scientist? I'm like, yes, because I know how to read data, and I know how to, how papers are structured, and I know how to research stuff, and I am a little bit more data driven. So absolutely, and it kind of made me into a person that is, this person is like, but what about this, and what about this, and how can we think about this? And in science, you're very kind of used to getting your work scrutinized all the time. That's kind of the point. You go, you present, and then people ask you questions. So if they don't ask you a question, that's usually a bad sign. So things like code reviews, like asking. I was very kind of, I was trained to question things, and that's probably the best thing that came out of my science degree, to challenge constantly everything. So I'm very glad it went the way it went, but it was not easy.
What was it? A master's in computer science that you did?
Yes, so it's Masters of Software Development. So before Code Clan was a thing, Glasgow Uni had like a conversion course.
Mhm.
So if you had a 2-1 or above, you could jump into this kind of entry level coding thing. And it was a year, and you got a master's out of it, which also I thought if I ever need to migrate, it's extra points, because it's like,
Yeah. If you
you
need the
get,
points, definitely worth doing.
exactly. So I just thought, let's just do it. And even if I don't go into it, it's another skill I can use. But it all worked out in the end.
Yeah, I
Awesome.
mean, it's no one has ever regretted learning to code ever. Like,
Mhm.
it doesn't matter if if you become a software engineer. Like, there are so many applications for using code in your day-to-day life, both professionally and non-professionally. Like, it's just such a good life skill in general to have. And I there's actually a few people on our Discord community that aren't even necessarily trying to become software engineers. They just want to learn to code because they think it'll be useful,
Yeah.
which I think is pretty cool and quite an interesting approach. But yeah, it's definitely something that is so useful.
Yeah, and I think like even your Excel spreadsheets have code in them, if you can automate your process, if you can automate your life a little bit more, make it easier so you have more time for yourself, your hobbies, and your family, than sitting in front of a desk copying and pasting things, then why not?
Absolutely.
What does a typical day look like for you at the moment as a software engineer?
A typical day. Is there such a thing as a typical day in a software engineer life?
Yeah,
Is
I don't
there?
know. You tell me from your perspective.
So when it comes to work, we are very happy to. So in terms of work, we're really lucky at Nude that like we're quite flexible when it comes to working. Um, so I just came back from like a month working remotely in Greece. So my day in Greece looked very different to my day in Scotland. So if I was in Greece, I would say, oh, I got some pastries, sat in the sun in the morning by the sea. Whereas in Glasgow, it's probably not the thing to do. Not got the weather for it all the time, but no. Let's get serious. Let's get serious. So I don't know. So I usually start at kind of 8 or 9, depending on what I've got in the day. In the morning, I try to tidy everything up, because at 10 a.m. we have a stand up. So I usually, if there's things that I'm looking at that I need to give up updates on, that's probably what I would do. But I also think like early mornings are a very good time for self-learning. So if you do have a little bit of time, um, I try to keep that time meeting free, so I can either focus on the work at hand, or if there is like a proof of concept that I'm working on, or if there is like we do quite a lot of refactoring, and we do quite a lot of good practices. So if there's like a different way that we want to do our repositories, I would do that in the morning, because it's that quiet time that like people don't want things from me yet. So I would do that in the morning. Then 10 a.m. rolls in. We've got our stand up. And for those who don't know, the whole point of a stand up is that everybody says what they are working on. So you've got visibility of other people's work. And then you can also highlight any problems that you have so people can help you. So we have a stand up at 10. Yeah, like stand ups are so important. I don't understand why people don't like them so much. Like they are, I think they do uncover people that are struggling, but that's the whole point, is to help each
Yeah,
other.
yeah, exactly.
So we did that. Then I worked till about 12:30. Again, we're very lucky at Nude that we have quite a lot of focus time. So we're big fans of like not kind of switching context that often. Like again, Keith is very big on that, and he does make sure we have that time. So then I'll work on features until like about 12:30. Then I try to get out during lunch, stretch them on good old legs, get some sun if there is sun, and then more focus time meetings, maybe 3 till 4, and then wrap up by 5. I don't know. It's not very exciting.
Yes, it is.
I don't do anything that I'm just like, yes, I wake up at 5 a.m. and then I
No, we
exercise
don't
for
want that.
20 minutes. But I think if you can focus, like my big belief is if you can do good focus time, it is far better than sitting at a desk for a whole day.
Yeah, totally.
And if you, like, I noticed that at uni that because I had so little time, and that's when I got really good at it. Because I had so little time, because I had work, and then I had uni work, and then I had family commitments and things like that. I didn't have time to procrastinate. I was like, right, I've got 2 hours to do this, and whatever's done at the end of 2 hours, that is it. So that kind of really changed my perspective on what does it mean to be working. Whereas I saw probably my colleagues or my fellow students, and because they had like the whole day, they would go out, get a coffee, sit and chat, do a little bit and go out for lunch. And I'm just like, please don't talk to me. I have so much to do. And it was just a very different vibe. So I am a big believer that, if you do your good focus, if you can do, I don't know, 4 to 5 hours of good focus time, like that is a day. That is the day, and that's it.
Awesome. You're kind of a forerunner of using the Pomodoro technique there. You're sort of saying that you're like inadvertently were forced into like doing what you can in a certain amount of time, and then that's it, right? Like I quite like that you've been forced into that.
Yes, the necessity.
Yeah.
The mother of invention. But
Exactly.
I don't know. I just feel like, you get these people that stay late and they're like, oh, I worked 12 hours yesterday. And you're like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't.
Yeah. When I worked in recruitment, which is actually what I did before I became a developer, I was surrounded by people that would basically just sit at their desk for as long as possible and like pretend to have worked. And it's just like, you're getting nothing out of that. And then the worst part is they would then get a bit funny with people if they felt like they were leaving a bit too early or something. And actually those people would be more productive a lot of the time. I mean, I just wasn't very productive, so I wasn't very good at the job. But like, which is why I learned to code. But it is mad. I wonder if that's changing with the move to remote work now. I mean, do you work remotely yourself, or because I know me and Colin mostly do.
Yeah, we're fully remote, which is why I could go work from Greece for a month and then Berlin for a little.
That would make much more sense. You can't get from Greece to Glasgow.
No. We do try to kind of meet up once a week when you can, but we are a fully remote company. But like I didn't learn in my first degree. I was a great procrastinator because I didn't have too much to do. But it just and then it leaks into your family time and leaks into your other, like, you're like, oh, I can't do this because I need to do this because I've not done it. Or like, oh, I've been, I skived for a wee bit during the day, and then you feel like, oh, I've not been productive, so I need to be more productive like later in the night. And it's just a bit unhealthy. Like, I would rather have my hours set, and if you need to do a little bit of work later, that's fine, and but don't make it your daily occurrence.
Yeah. And it's like, on a similar note, I like to be either 100% working or 100% relaxing, because it's really easy to actually be 50% working, 50% relaxing. It's like, if I'm actually just messing out my phone, but I've got my VS Code open, so I feel good about myself, like, oh yeah, I'm working. I'm not. That's the thing. So it's like, I'd rather actually, just get my head down and be 100% focused on the work, because even if you work for half as many hours, you're actually getting the same amount done. So, and then you can relax guilt-free, which is great. It's that's what life's all about.
It's different if you've got a podcast on. I'm just going to say this. Like, I'm a big believer in listening to podcasts while you do tasks. So that's a little bit different. But yeah, if you're just like sitting on your phone and then, as you said, have the VS Code open and.
We wholeheartedly agree with that statement, although research shows that generally the coder career actually is the most beneficial to listen to while you're working.
I would like to see the sources of the study, please.
Well, it's
got a scientist here, bro.
And actually, my next question, interesting enough, you actually brought it up earlier about upskilling and working on personal development. And you said you like to do it before your stand ups, which I think is a really awesome approach because your brain is going to be the freshest at that point. From a wider perspective, what's been your strategy to upskill throughout your career?
This is going to be a very unpopular opinion, but so you don't have to learn outside of work in order to be a successful developer, but it really friggin' helps.
Yeah.
And like you don't, it's difficult, right? Because you shouldn't be coding after work because again, it's that life balance. But it does help. And I think for me personally, I was very aware of it because I did a entry into code, and when I like we didn't learn some of the stuff that like the code planners are doing, like they're doing test driven development stuff. I've never learned that. And so when I hit the industry, it was, you know, I got a distinction in my masters. I was like, yeah, I'm bee's knees, I know everything. And then you hit, you know, people hit you with it, and you like a coding test, and you're like, I have absolutely no friggin' clue how to do any of this stuff. Like I didn't, yeah, I had no idea how to test well. Just because of 1 year is just not enough. And also I think some concepts just kind of need to sit in your brain for a wee bit because before you fully kind of realize them. You just need time for those pathways to form in your brain. So actually for me, doing a lot of stuff in the community was a great learning experience. The reason why I joined Codecraft is I went for the first session. I don't know how I heard about it. I can't remember. But it was um Caroline, and I remember seeing her at it, and I was like, "Oh, cool, that's cool." And also, just to mention, like our masters was like 50% girls, 50% boys, so it was very like
That's
gender.
great. That's
Yeah,
really
it
good.
was really gender kind of equal. Um, and then you kind of hit industry, and it's just not the case.
Yeah.
So I went to the meetup. Caroline was there, and we did this thing called the ping pong programming pattern. So many P's. We love alliterations in Codecraft. Like we love it. So we've got the ping pong programming pattern, which is where you have a task. One person writes the tests. The second person writes the code, and then to get this test to pass, then that person also writes the test for for next bit of the work, and then passes the computer back to you, and then you write the code, and then you write the test, and you kind of go back and forth like that.
Very
And
cool.
yeah, it was very cool because I was surrounded by these like senior engineers that just really liked coding. It was just like kind of like separate, um, bit of what do you call it? It was just like a separate problem, a little bit of fun, a little bit of problem solving. And they were just so kind with their time. They were like, "Oh, but you can do this, and you can do this, and you can do this," and like because because a lot of these folks knew what they were doing. They were like, "What language do you want to code in?" And I was like, "Well, I only know Java." And they're like, "Okay, let's do Java." It was very
Yeah.
much let's just kind of work at it together. It was a terrible problem because it was the plates for the cars, number plates, which is very hard to write. If you ever try to write it, there's so many rules. It's so silly. Um, and I was just like, I can't believe that this is A, free. B, there's someone who's nice enough to teach me and like give me their time, and C, they're actually having fun doing it. I was like, what? So I learned like that, and I went into meetups, and I really gravitated towards this kind of like hands-on discussion driven um format, because I'm like, okay, I'm not sitting at a talk where I'm just like absorbing information in. I'm actually participating. I can ask a question. If there's something I don't understand, I can ask other participants about it. You can hear people being really passionate about subjects, and like trying to understand like which way is better, like in terms of, for example, testing strategies. And so for me, that was really amazing. And that's why I started like helping to run it, because I was just like, this is great. Everybody should come to this. We need to like protect all these nice people that want to do good. And I got really excited about Codecraft. So that's one way I learned is always going to meetups. And second one, you just have to, I don't know, like I you don't have to, but it helps when you read at home, and you either subscribe to newsletters, or you find everybody learns differently. I learn through doing most of the time. So you just kind of find that for me, so that's how I learned. And actually, in all honesty with you, you need to understand yourself more as a person than kind of being like, oh, I need to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, that's a really important observation, I think.
Yeah, so I realized that I was a perfectionist. And I only realized this because I had this really lovely lady that, because I was a community organizer, she was like, I'll give you a free session. And I was like, thank you so much. And I was like, I'll pass it on, which I tried to do. And she sat down with me and she kind of listened to what I was saying. And I'll link the talk. I'll put it in the show notes, or like, well, you're going to put it in the show notes, but I'll give you the link. And it was, the story of a person that tries to do too much, and then they just don't end up following through with anything because they're just, they're just getting dragged in so many different directions. And she was like, all right, you need to start goal setting. You need to be really realistic. Like, pick 5 things you want to do a month, pick the times you're going to do them, and then just focus on that. And to be honest, that was eye-opening for me, to understand that I could do it, because for someone to give me kind of like a tool to focus myself on certain things. And then she said, if you've done it for a month and you don't like it, just like dump it. You don't need to look into it. But spend good time on it and then move on. And that was really good. So I tried to bring that to my career now. So at Nude, because we're so new, when I joined, we didn't even have like our app launched. So we didn't have all this infrastructure in of like HR, right? We didn't have, this is how, your career progression is. But as I went in, I knew exactly that. I'm like, right, every month I need to have 5 goals. I need someone to keep me accountable to those goals. I need them to be clear, and I need to have a 3-month vision, 6-month vision, and then a 12-month vision. And that's kind of how I developed my training plan with my manager, because I know that works for me. But it took me time, right? Because sometimes you go into your team meeting and they're like, so what do you want to learn? And you're like, do you know what do you think I should learn?
Yeah. I think that's what you've hit on is really important. I used to see this a lot at Code Clan. So a lot of our listeners are people with 0 to 3 years experience, and the 0 is really important to us at the Coder Career, because it could be somebody that's listening that's, for example, thinking about, going into a career in coding or software engineering ultimately. And then when you get to that point where you've learned like a little bit more, and you might even be looking for a job, or you might even have a job, there is a point at which people you realize how big everything is, and you kind of want to learn everything. And that there almost is a pressure to learn everything, right?
Absolutely.
Like there's always somebody posting a blog to say, oh, you have to learn Next.js. You really need to learn TypeScript. Learn CSS3 right now. Like right now, that whole pressurized like thing. And I can't stand that. It really irritates me as somebody who coaches people and helps educate people, and like it's all about slow learning and making sure that things are like getting filtered down, and you're understanding things the right way. So what you're saying is really important in terms of, like, to summarize that, Ewa, you said plan what you're going to do, plan how much time you want to spend on each thing, and try and hit that. And I think that's really important, because a lot of people, they just aimlessly like move between learning this, learning that. Oh, today I'm learning this, and you can only take in so much of each tiny little thing, right?
Absolutely. And I think also everything is kind of the same. So what I noticed I'm going for a senior next year, right? So, and as I noticed in that 5 years that I'm going to have soon, like, patterns are so important, right? Because everything, it kind of works the same. You've got a database, you've got a database, something that retrieves it from the database, something that edits what you've retrieved, and then it returns it to you. And you're like, this is APIs, and this is everything else. And like, majority of APIs will work like that, And then you can learn about GraphQL, and you're like, oh, this is a little bit of a different way of doing APIs.
But it's the same thing,
But it's the
right?
same thing. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then you have, React, and you're like, oh, it's a component. It's a component system, and it's just the same. It's the same thing. When you, like, for example, Yeah, basically. It's the
Basically,
same
what
thing.
I love what you're saying is like you're saying like, and this is something that really helped when I was teaching and when I was working with people in education, and explaining to people that what they're building doesn't need to be something that's they're not doing this for the first time, right?
No, exactly.
Like so like as much as you're loving learning about this really complicated thing, and as much as you're loving like getting your engineer hat on and like hacking the crap out of it and spending a lot of time on it, like in a weird way, what you're doing has been done millions of times before, and that's an eye opener for a lot of people.
Yeah, and even though there's a new thing underneath that all
Yeah,
that shininess, there's still the old
yeah,
crap.
it's all the same stuff.
Like, yeah, it's. I don't know if you remember, but everybody, it was a Dynamo. I think it was called Dynamo. It was like
DynamoDB.
no. Oh, it wasn't
Oh,
Dynamo.
sorry.
It was like a new engine for JavaScript, and they were like, "Node is dead. We have Dynamo. We have
Oh,
Oh,
Dynamo now."
Deno.
Yeah,
Dino or
right.
Dino. I don't know how to
Yeah,
pronounce it.
DENO, wasn't it?
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
Yeah,
Twitter went mad for it.
yeah,
Everybody was like,
totally.
"Oh my god, this is the end of
I
no." I'm
know.
not.
I know.
Do you hear about it now? No.
Nothing. Yeah,
So
it's
yeah,
it's that hype train, isn't it? Like
it is, and
it's
I think
yeah,
Twitter is really bad for it.
totally.
Twitter is the worst for it. I don't know
And
how to.
YouTube.
Yeah, and YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up actually, because the Discord question of the week I think actually is quite related to that, because the asker is that even a word? The person that asked the question,
The
Yeah, sure.
Inquisitor.
What advice can you give to someone who's learning all the materials, languages, and other systems, but still not successfully employed?
to rephrase it, almost non-technical skills. What do you think people can do to try and advance to get to the point where they can get job number one when they're technically ready?
Um, it's a good question, and everybody's different, right? Because soft skills are a very personal thing. So it's up to the individual to understand where they lack in those soft skills, whether it is the way they understand stuff. But for me, what worked for me, obviously, I can only talk about what worked for me, is the ability to say, I don't know, but, I can do this,
Mm.
and this is how I understand it works, and this is how far I got to, but I don't know how to progress it further. Or, um, yeah, having an opinion on things. I did it this way because of X, Y, and Z, to show your kind of thinking and how you approach a problem, because this is what is going to be very important to you as you go through your career. So I do interviews. I did interviews in my last place, and they're very eye-opening. Really great books for the ego. Sometimes you're like, they're amazing, but sometimes you're like, what the hell. And when someone says to me, like, let's say we're going over their coding test, and this is a senior and this is someone that I need to learn from, for example, and you ask a question, okay, well, why did you do this? And they say, well, I just felt like it. You're like, you're going to make me feel stupid when I don't understand something, and you put in absolutely zero effort into explaining it to me. So it's just not going to work for both of us, because I firmly believe that one of the biggest tasks of a senior is to bring the team with you. And like,
100%.
yeah, being able to explain the tasks and like, especially for juniors, right, is making them feel like they're not idiots, and making them feel like that they're empowered, that they can make decisions, that they can, play about with code and break stuff. Like, that kind of confidence pushing for seniors is really important. So if they are condescending people, I just don't have any time for that. I'm very like, don't care, don't want to talk to you. Like, just yeah.
Yeah, the talented asshole is someone that everyone has had to work with at some point, and then no one ever wants to work with them again after that, because they're just so, like, you can be as good as you want, but if you have the wrong attitude about it as a senior person that's supposed to mentor people, it's just impossible to work with.
Yeah, and it just becomes bitterness in the team, and it's just not good. um but yeah, admitting when, yeah, just humbleness, really, right? Admit when you
Yeah.
don't know, explain your answer as far as you can, and show your personality off, because we all need to work with each other. I need to be able to have small talk with a person on that call when you're waiting. You're like, so how's your weekend? Going anywhere on holiday? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think those are just try to, when you're at your tech test, show off your thinking and ask questions. Yeah.
I think that's, in my experience, that's one of the hardest things to get people to do.
Yeah.
Because by default, when somebody who's non-technical is learning to become technical, they think that the person who's asking them the question to try and understand what level their knowledge is at and how much experience they have and what they think and how their brain works and how their problem solving works. I think they think that they're being quizzed to give a right or wrong. Like people go back to like being at school and being like, what color, what is the answer to this question? 14, or no, wrong, it's 13.
Score die.
Idiot.
You can't work there,
big red cross. Like, so people go back to that, like that I'm 13 years old and I'm at school again, or I'm 10 or whatever, and actually, like, it's really hard to convince them that actually what we really want is I really want to understand how you think about this problem, not whether you're getting the right answer or this is whether you've like coded this the correct way, but like what's your brain doing right now? Like that's really what you're getting at.
Exactly. And also, just a pro tip to everybody listening, majority of people don't know what they're doing. Like you're trying to interview and you're like, oh, maybe. they, like a lot of people haven't thought, or like, it's a standard test that everybody has to take. And I don't know. I just feel like people ask these questions like, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? I'm like, what do you want from this question? When I hear those questions, I'm like, all right, well, I want this. Why do you ask?
Yep. Boom.
Like, boom,
yeah.
like, but they don't know because they're not. I mean, maybe it's important for a company because you want to make sure that people will be there in 5 years' time, which they won't. But it's just like, what is the value of this question? And
I love that.
I
love that. So I'm in favor of calling out bullshit questions in interviews.
But it's true, right? You're like, why are you wasting everybody's time? Ask me something relevant. My God. And then you see on TikTok, you see these TikToks like, how to answer this question. I'm just like, oh.
That's you, Cameron.
Oh, no. But
is that you? I'm so sorry. Sorry.
If we're thinking of the same account on TikTok, there's this guy who wears a suit who answers these mock questions in a really loud voice, and he's like, "I think that my experience stands," and it's like it's like a self-help video from the 80s. My tips on TikTok are a lot more chill. Like,
right, what's your TikTok? I need to follow.
It's at thecodercareer. What a segue there as well.
I know. Free.
Yeah, thank you for asking.
I will check you out, and I'll call out all these answers. Look up for the comments.
I like what you're saying there as well. Like I really do genuinely like what you're saying there as well, because like I find that when I'm in an interview situation and someone's asking me some random like written down BS question like what's your biggest flaw or like where do you see yourself in 10 years, and like you really have to wonder like how much, if they're putting that much effort into like hiring, do you really want to work there? Like, I know that I maybe shouldn't be giving out advice to say like turn down jobs or whatever, and please nobody ever just like turn down a job and then turn around and blame me for it. But have a think about like, are they asking questions that you think that they should ask that makes you think and like gets your brain going and like is relevant to your experience, or do they just have like a pre-written set of like questions that they ask everyone? Who'd do that?
I think that's, but see, this is the thing with tech, right? Because you have people that are not technical that are interviewing, and it might be your first stage, and you kind of need to know those bullshit questions to get to the second stage. So I totally understand. But if someone that you're going to work with, like your future manager asks that, you're like, why are you asking this? So sometimes you do need to get through the first stage of like the rubbish questions. I do have a lot of sympathy for people who are going for their first job, because I remember my first job and I just remember being so frustrated all the time. My worst, this should be a question on your podcast. What was the worst interview experience you've ever had?
That's a good question.
And I will forever remember this interview. It was her company in Glasgow that I shall not name. But honest to God, I it was so bad. So when you're naming your variables that are booleans, usually you use something like is word or like is true or whatever, right? That's like a standard you use. But I did not know that because we didn't do any good code practices in my university course. So I did not know what is was, right? And English is not my first language. I am fully fluent, right? I would say that English is my first language, but I get my moments where I'm like, what is this? And so I went into this interview, and the task was to write a predictive text dictionary, which would output is word. And I said, what's
Which
this
would
word?
what? Sorry,
Which
was
would output is word, like whether it is if something is a word or if
okay.
it isn't a word. Like, so you go through a tree, find all the things, and then in order to check all the possibilities, and then check in the dictionary if that is an actual word, and then output them as an array of predictions. And I could not, for the life of me, understand what is word was. Like,
as the name of the variable.
Yeah, we got into this because the question just said explore output is word, and I'm like, what is word? And they're like, is word. I'm like, yeah, but like what is word? And like whether
what
is
word
word. Yeah. It was like whether it's word or not. And I'm like, so it is a word or it isn't a word? And they're like, yeah, it's word. And
My God.
it was honest, and it was also a whiteboard interview. And it was honestly horrendous. I just remember coming, and it didn't give me any water. So it was like this 2:00 interview. It was so hot in the office. I've been there for 3 hours, no water. It was over like it was just horrendous. And we just started going back and forth like is word. And then they just handed me like the Java doc that they printed out. And then I was looking at it, I was like, there's no is word on this. It was just a disaster. It was absolute disaster. I went home, I cried on the way back. I was like, I don't know what I did. So I have a lot of sympathy for people who are interviewing for the first time. It is a skill. It does get easier as you get through it. And it is like, I think finding your first one is the worst. Like that, I think that is the hardest. And then you learn like what you put up with, what you like, what you don't like. And then as you go to a second, third one is fine.
Yeah, definitely. The worst story I've ever heard about an interview was I saw on the CS Careers Questions subreddit. This office, the CEO had a Chihuahua, and the
It's
guy
already
was
a
doing
red
a
flag.
whiteboard. Yeah, the guy was doing a whiteboard exercise, and he slipped and fell backwards and fell on the Chihuahua and killed it.
And killed it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, killed it.
Oh my God.
That
can't be
It's
true.
awful. I love dogs, but it was an awful story.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I take it with a pinch of salt, which is Reddit, but yeah.
Yeah, but
I mean,
imagine.
On a lighter note, how do you think people can get involved in tech meetups if they're maybe a little bit unsure? Because obviously you're so involved in them yourself.
Yeah, sure. This will form a good basis for my blog. I haven't thought about it yet, but there you go. How do you get involved? Turn up. That's like number one. Find one that sounds interesting and literally just turn up to it. You can always leave. You're not held there hostage. If things are not going your way, just leave.
That's a good bit of advice, actually.
It's fine. Like, try not to walk out in the middle of a talk because that's a little bit rude. But the minute talk's finished, just go. Get your pizza and go. Just turn up and try and find communities. I think it's post-COVID is a little bit difficult because, as I said, like before COVID, everybody would be going to tech meetups. There would be, there's Slack groups, Meetup, or like meetup.com, Eventbrite, Tito, all these places. You would have like, where do you find meetups and all this kind of stuff. Now it's a little bit harder because we're just coming back into the offices, and people are still kind of iffy because of COVID, and we'll see how winter goes. But Codecraft is open to everybody, all levels, so absolutely please join us. There is Tech Meetup that's starting up this month, so it's only going to be, oh gosh, I'll put it in the show notes. So the actual Tech Meetup is starting. They're like more talk based. Just find your niche, go and see if you meet new people. Go a couple of times, because you might not meet your person the first time, like a person that you click with. Just literally just turn up and see what happens. Find people, like, if you've got someone who you could go with, it's always better to go in a pair, because you can give each other confidence, and you can both leave at one time if it's terrible. But usually, what's really good to look out for, especially as I am one of the organizers, is what was really important for us is making sure the spaces are safe. So we have a code of conduct, because we're such an involved meetup. We need to be very kind of honest and be like, this is the code of conduct. You will be asked to leave if you don't abide by it. So, for example, because we discuss things a lot, some people can get quite angry. We've never had this, right? But I would imagine some people can get quite angry about it and then just call someone an idiot, right? So obviously that's not tolerated. But that's also a really big learning curve for someone. But it's like, you can't call someone an idiot. You need to explain why their point of their idea is wrong and you do not agree with it, and what is the point that you disagree with. So we have code of conduct to kind of help with those situations and remove people that are being disruptive, and very just not nice people. But people make Glasgow, so we actually never had to remove anyone.
Long may it continue.
Yes. So, I would say have a look at code of conduct, contact the organizers. If you're feeling unsure, if you want to kind of come up with them, or you want someone to show you around, most people will be very happy to do so. And yeah, just find your niche. We've got Rookie Oven, that's still going. So yeah, plenty of good, and hopefully as we come out of this pandemic, there'll be more exciting things.
Brilliant.
And if you want to run one, get in touch with me. I know resource is in Glasgow. I'm quite active on the Glasgow scene, so I can put you in touch with people who can sponsor you, who can give you space, who can help you set up. Like, again, we're very welcoming, and we want people to succeed and then give back later on. I think that's the whole point, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a great mission statement for sure. And I mean, we're kind of approaching the end of the podcast now, so I just wanted to say a massive thank you, because we have borrowed you for more than the allotted hour in the calendar invite. So thank you for staying on. But
thank you for the chat. Listen, if you want to pick my brain some more, always welcome.
We would absolutely love to. Yeah.
Yeah, we love that.
So if people want to get in touch with you after the show, like, for example, if they're really interested in codecraft or something like that, what's generally the best way for people to get and keep in touch with you?
I really like LinkedIn, but I am also on Twitter, and we have an email for Codecraft as well. So I will send you all the links so you can put them in the show notes.
Brilliant.
But I do like LinkedIn. I don't know why.
Me too. I like it as well.
I think like there's a lot, like, people post garbage, but I think it's becoming a better platform for creators.
Yeah.
Because if you're not a TikToker, like what is there?
There's Instagram, but like the ecosystem for that is weird for developers anyway.
It's weird.
Like TikTok is the only, it's a decent resource for developers, but even then the ecosystem's a bit weird. So LinkedIn is really underrated, actually.
But yeah, there is a lot of garbage on it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Cool, absolutely. Great. And thanks again. And thank you as well to all the listeners for tuning in for another episode of The Coder Career. You can find as well both me and Colin's contact details in the description below, and of course the Discord community as well, which you can now access by going to www.thecodercareer.com. And thanks again, and we'll see you next time.